Shalom, welcome back to the Midrash Parsha series. Today we are entering Shavuot II, and because in the Diaspora this year it falls on Shabbat, the Torah reading expands. We do not only hear the festival reading, we hear a larger passage from Deuteronomy, beginning with Tithes, moving through the sabbatical year, generosity to the poor, the firstborn animals, Pesach, the counting of weeks, Shavuot, Sukkot, and finally, the command that no one should appear before God empty-handed. At first, that sounds like many subjects placed together. But Midrash Aggadah helps us hear one deep movement underneath all of it. Shavuot is not only about receiving Torah as an idea. It is about becoming a people whose money, food, time, memory, joy, and gratitude are all brought under the presence of God. The reading begins with tithing. You shall surely tithe. Midrash Aggadah notices the double language and reads it as more than accounting. It is a spiritual discipline. The harvest does not remain sealed inside private ownership. The first movement of holiness is separation. I take from what came into my hand, and I say, this is not only mine. That is a very important Shavuot teaching. Many people imagine revelation as thunder, fire, mountain, and heavenly voice. But here, on the second day, the Torah brings revelation down into produce, money, travel, and food shared before God. In other words, after Sinai, the question is not only, did you hear God's voice? The question is, can God's voice be seen in how you handle blessing? Midrash Aggadah explains that the tithe mentioned here is the second tithe, eaten before God in the chosen place. The point is not only to give something away. The point is to learn reverence through joy. You go up with your blessing. You eat, but you eat in the presence of heaven. You rejoice, but your rejoicing is discipline. Your table becomes a school of awe. Then the Torah says, do not abandon the Levite. And every third year, the Levite, the stranger, the orphan, and the widow eat and are satisfied. This is where the Torah becomes very direct. If my feast excludes the vulnerable, then my feast is not complete. If my joy has no room for someone without land, without inheritance, without protection, then my joy is still too small. On Shavuot, we remember receiving the Torah. But this reading asks, who can taste Torah because I received it? Who is fed because I was blessed? Who is included because I came near to God? Then the reading moves to the 7th year, the year of release. Debts are released. Pressure is loosened. A person is not trapped forever under the weight of what they owe. Midrash Aggadah connects this section with the law of release, teaching that the creditor says, I release. There is a holiness in letting go. And this is powerful for Shavuot II. The first day of Shavuot is often about the giving of Torah from above. The second day asks whether Torah has softened the hand below. Has revelation made my grip more merciful? Has the Word of God changed the way I hold power over another person? The Torah then says, there should not be a needy person among you. But if there is a poor person, you must open your hand. Not open it halfway. Not open it with resentment. Open, you shall open. Give, you shall give. The Torah repeats the language because the heart often resists the first time. The hand opens, then closes again. So the Torah trains us with repetition. This is one of the great messages of the holiday. Torah is not only received by the mind. Torah is received by the hand. A closed hand can study sacred words and still not yet be shaped by them. An open hand becomes a living commentary. Then comes the Hebrew servant. After 6 years, he goes free in the 7th. And the Torah says not to send him away empty. You load him with gifts from your flock, your threshing floor, and your winepress. Why? Because you remember that you were a servant in Egypt, and God redeemed you. This is the Torah's memory system. You do not remember Egypt only by telling the story. You remember Egypt by refusing to recreate Egypt in your own house. You remember slavery by making sure another person does not leave your service humiliated, empty, and unseen. Then the reading returns to the firstborn of the herd and flock. Midrash Aggadah reads the firstborn as the one that opens the womb. The first opening belongs to God. That means the beginning of strength, the beginning of wealth, the beginning of increase is not treated casually. It is sanctified. This fits Shavuot deeply. Shavuot is called the Day of First Fruits. It is the festival where the new produce comes before God. The inner meaning is simple but sharp. Before I consume the future, I consecrate it. Before I turn blessing into habit, I pause and say, "This came from beyond me." Then the Torah recalls Pesach. It speaks of leaving Egypt in haste, eating the bread of affliction, and remembering the day of departure all the days of your life. Midrash Aggadah says the haste refers to the haste of Egypt when Egypt pressed the people to leave and the dough had no time to rise. Why is Pesach inside the Shavuot reading? Because Shavuot cannot be separated from Pesach. Freedom and Torah are one path. Pesach takes us out of bondage. Shavuot teaches us how to live as free people. Without Pesach, Shavuot has no beginning. Without Shavuot, Pesach has no completion. So, when the Torah says to remember the Exodus all the days of your life, it is not nostalgia. It is spiritual orientation. I came out of narrowness. I came out of pressure. I came out because God made a way. Therefore, I cannot build my life as if I was never rescued. Then the Torah says, count 7 weeks from when the sickle begins in the standing grain. Midrash Aggadah says, there is a command to count days and a command to count weeks. It also connects the count with the beginning of the harvest. The count is not abstract. It begins in the field, in the standing grain, in the place where life is becoming food. And Midrash Aggadah adds a beautiful practical detail from the word standing. The blessing of the count is made standing, not sitting. That image is perfect for Shavuot. We do not crawl into Torah like defeated people. We stand, we count as people being prepared. We count as people rising. Then comes the command. Make the festival of weeks to the Lord your God with a freewill offering according to the blessing God has given you. This is the heart of Shavuot II. The Torah does not demand the same gift from every person. It says, give according to the blessing you receive. In other words, heaven looks at proportion, not performance. This frees us from comparison. One person has much, another has little. One person brings from a large field, another brings from a small life, a tired week, a quiet heart, a private struggle. The question is not did you bring what someone else brought. The question is, did you bring yourself honestly before God? Then the Torah says, rejoice before the Lord. You, your son, your daughter, your servant, your maidservant, the Levite, the stranger, the orphan, and the widow. Notice the shape of joy. It expands outward. Biblical joy is not a private emotion locked inside the self. It is a table that widens. And then the Torah says again, remember that you were a servant in Egypt. Why repeat this memory? Because privilege forgets quickly. Comfort forgets quickly. Blessing forgets quickly. So the Torah ties joy to memory. If you remember slavery, your joy becomes compassionate. If you forget slavery, your joy becomes arrogant. This is one of the most needed teachings for modern life. Many people want spiritual joy without responsibility. But the Torah says, true joy remembers. True joy includes. True joy knows that God did not leave me so I could stand above others. God lifted me so my life could make room for others. Then the reading moves to Sukkot, and Midrash Aggadah draws attention to the command to make the sukkah for yourself, not from something already made, and not from something stolen. Even though this is Shavuot, the reading mentions all three pilgrimage festivals because they form one cycle: Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Pesach is freedom. Shavuot is covenant. Sukkot is sheltered joy. Together, they teach the whole journey. God takes us out. God gives us Torah. God teaches us to dwell under divine protection. Midrash Aggadah also reflects on the phrase, you shall be only joyful, and says that in this world, joy is not always complete. That is honest and comforting. The Torah commands joy, but the Midrash knows human life. Even at the table, there can be pain. Even at the festival, there can be unfinished stories. So, what does the command mean? It means we turn toward joy as an act of faith. We do not pretend everything is perfect. We bring our imperfect life before God and still say, I will rejoice in the blessing I have been given. I will not let pain steal the whole table. Finally, the Torah says, 3 times a year all your males shall appear before God, and they shall not appear empty-handed. Midrash Aggadah explains that the males are obligated, and then asks why the three festivals are listed together. Because these are the appointed times of appearing. To appear before God is not merely to show up physically. It is to become visible. On Shavuot, I appear with my Torah. I appear with my harvest. I appear with my memory. I appear with what I have done for the Levite, the stranger, the orphan, and the widow. I appear with the truth of my hand. And then comes the maftir from Numbers. On the day of first fruits, when you bring a new grain offering to God on your festival of weeks, it shall be a holy convocation. Midrash Aggadah says, this refers to Shavuot, when the 2 loaves of leavened wheat bread are brought from the new wheat. This is a beautiful detail. On Pesach, we remove chametz. On Shavuot, the offering is leavened bread. The movement is not accidental. First, we leave Egypt quickly before the dough can rise. Then, after counting, after preparation, after discipline, the risen bread itself can be offered. That means the part of life that expands, grows, ferments, and becomes full can also be sanctified. Shavuot does not erase human life. It elevates it. It says, even your increase, even your fullness, even your bread, even your success can become an offering. So Shavuot II is the day after Revelation, the day that asks what revelation becomes. It becomes generosity. It becomes release. It becomes memory. It becomes open hands. It becomes joy shared with the vulnerable. It becomes the courage to appear before God without pretending, but also without coming empty. And this is why Shavuot II feels like the quiet day after the thunder. The mountain has already shaken, but now the Torah asks whether the soul has learned to become steady today. Can I bless without controlling? Can I give without needing applause? Can I remember Egypt without becoming bitter? Can I stand before God with the honest fruit of my life? The Midrash does not let revelation float above the earth. It brings it down until holiness can be measured in bread, generosity, released debt, remembered suffering, and joy shared with people who might otherwise be forgotten. And maybe that is the message for us today. Do not come empty. Bring your learning. Bring your gratitude. Bring your honesty. Bring the part of your life that still needs healing. Bring the blessing God gave you, and bring a portion of it back into holiness. Because the Torah was never meant to remain only on the mountain. It was meant to enter the field, the wallet, the table, the calendar, the family, the stranger, the orphan, the widow, and the quiet places where nobody sees whether the hand opens or closes. That is Shavuot according to Midrash Aggadah. The voice of God becoming the shape of a life. The first fruits becoming a holy offering. The feast becoming a widened table. The memory of Egypt becoming compassion. The count becoming readiness. And the person standing before God, not empty, but awake, grateful, and willing to be transformed. Shalom.